Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Once World, and I have a couple of things to tell you before we get into the meat of things. One of them is, of course, if you're seeing my face, I'm not doing a cooking video. I haven't got anything very interesting for you. I'm making a soup which in standard Italian is called pasta e fagioli. That's beans and pasta. And in Sicilian dialect, which Italian Americans usually emulate, it's called pasta fazool. And it's just not very interesting. It's pasta and beans with maybe a little bit of belly pork or bacon and some tomatoes and tomato sauce of some sort. It's all very straightforward. If you roast lamb on Easter Sunday, then by now you might be thinking about what to do with the extra lamb. And when I do that, which I didn't do this year, I make Scotch broth, which is lamb bones and barley, carrots and onions. Very nice. I also make shepherd's pie. It's ground up leftover lamb and peas and carrots and onions topped with mashed potatoes. I've done all those things before. Okay, so that's point number one. Point number two, you'll notice that I haven't shaved. That's because I shaved everything off for my birthday last Tuesday, and now I'm just letting everything grow. Normally for this cold open, I do a test video, and then I look at it and I say, oh, I haven't shaved. So I go off and shave and then come back and do the cold open again with a shaven face. Well, now I've got a little bit of stubble on my chin and on my head, and I'm just going to let it grow, and then eventually I'll trim it so that I'm back to short hair and mutton chops. All that aside, I have decided to talk today about what I'm calling secular Easter. And it's a twin to secular Christmas. Christmas is a church holiday, and for many, many centuries it was a minor church holiday because birthdays were not celebrated either by the faithful or by much of anybody else. In fact, I was interested to note when I was last in Borneo, a great many people of my age have no idea about their actual date of birth, which is a problem because if they want to get Malaysian identification as citizens, they have to put down their date of birth, and they don't know. So they just make it up. They choose a date that they like because their parents said, oh yes, you were born when we were harvesting the rice, or you were born when we were planting the rice or weeding the fields, and that's about the best they've got, because birthdays just aren't important, and they weren't important in the early centuries of the Christian era. So Christmas was never very important, and it continued not to be important all the way down to the time of Dickens in the 19th century. And Dickens thought, well, we've got to change this, and so he wrote, among other things, A Christmas Carol. One of the things that very few people understand nowadays is that Christmas in the 19th century was a time when you told ghost stories. And so Christmas Carol is actually a 19th century Christmas ghost story, but with the Christmas theme. And it doesn't have much of a Christian aspect to it. He does mention Jesus now and again, but he mostly just talks about how Christmas is a time when people should get together as a family, and most particularly that they should eat and drink together as a family. That was his big message, and the Christian message was kind of sidelined. And so secular Christmas was born, where people decided that on Christmas Day they were going to have a big party, invite family and friends, give gifts and all of that. And Jesus was kind of pushed to the side. That's what I call secular Christmas. Well, there's also a secular Easter. And let's talk about that. So, secular Christmas has a lot of things added to the biblical narrative of the Nativity. In the Bible, you've got Mary, Joseph, the baby, the manger, shepherds, angels, magi. That's all in Luke and Matthew. And the secular world adds to it Santa Claus, and reindeer, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, and then on and on. You've got Bing Crosby's White Christmas and all of that stuff. So that's the secular Christmas. Secular Easter is really interesting to me because the images of Easter itself don't lend themselves very well to the media. I mean, you've got the crucifixion, and that's obviously pretty prominent within the Catholic world in iconography in general, but it's not very celebratory. And what do you do with the empty tomb? You can't really make a lot about that or any of the events surrounding Easter Sunday itself. But there are images that are taken from pagan tradition, the tradition of Easter, who gives us the name Easter itself, and the two items that were dedicated to Easter were the egg and the rabbit, both symbols of fertility. Well, the egg works pretty well in terms of the empty tomb. That is, you've got the egg closed over, just like the tomb was closed over with a rock. And then you open the tomb. Well, you open the egg and you've got a chicken. So it's not quite the same. So you open the tomb and it's empty. But then subsequently Jesus appears. And so it sort of matches. The bunny doesn't match at all. It's just a symbol of spring and fertility. But those become the secular symbols of Easter, the Easter egg hunts, chocolate Easter eggs, and Easter bunnies bringing gifts, including marshmallow peeps and who knows what else. So that there's that secular angle, although it doesn't have the same power as the materialism associated with secular Christmas, but it's kind of up there. I always used to make an Easter basket for my son, and various chocolate things in there and stuff he liked. But what I really want to focus on is not so much the day of Easter itself, but leading up to it, Lent. And you remember that I've also made a point of indicating that Lent and Advent are equivalent times in the church. Advent gives you this preparation time. Remember, I was saying that it's like climbing a hill towards Christmas. Advent goes slowly, slowly, slowly. You light one candle each Sunday in the Advent wreath until eventually you get to Christmas, so that it's a slow journey of preparation. And Lent is the same way. Lent is meant to be a slow preparation to Christmas. Slightly longer than Advent. It's about 6 weeks. It's meant to be 40 days. But if you do your counting from Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent, until Easter Sunday, you realize that it's actually 40 6 days. Now, why is that? Well, it's because in Lent there are 6 Sundays. And the Sundays in Lent are not fasting days, because according to Catholic dogma, every Sunday, and that includes the Sundays in Lent, are feast days. So that's one thing that people often get wrong. They think that you should fast for all of the days of Lent, including Sundays. It's just not true, at least according to Catholic dogma. You're allowed to not feast in some kind of like blowout fashion, but you're allowed to eat meat on Sundays in Lent, because Sundays are feast days. So let's talk about fasting. I'm a big fan of fasting and feasting. Going back decades, I've always felt that just eating what you want or doing what you want whenever you want and not worrying about the consequences is a little bit sad. That if you stop doing something for a period of time, then doing it after that period is more joyous, more glorious, because you've avoided doing that particular thing that you like for a long period of time. It makes it more special. That's another video, another long story. But I just want to talk about fasting in Lent. Now the church, or at least the Catholic Church, now here's the thing, most Protestant churches, and certainly the Presbyterian Church, does not advocate fasting in Lent. I remember my pastor back in the 1960s preaching a sermon in Lent which essentially said Presbyterians don't fast in Lent. And his answer was, the reason we don't do it is because we are puritanical all the time. Like, there's no special reason to be particularly puritanical in Lent because we're hard on ourselves every day of the year. Well, I don't like that either. I'm okay with Lent. I'm okay with the idea of preparing for Easter. Kind of similar to my unpacking Christmas. I'm happy with unpacking Easter as well. So what about Lent? Well, as it happens, I always fast in Lent, and historically, although not now, and incidentally, because I'm 70 years old, even if I were Catholic, I would not be obligated to fast because I'm over a certain age when you're obliged to fast. But back when I was a pastor, I used to follow the old traditional Catholic precepts, which were no meat, primarily, no animal products, but not really vegan. You're allowed to eat fish, you're allowed to eat cheese, and eggs, I think, I'm not so sure, but animal meat and animal fats were forbidden, except on Sunday. So even on Sunday in Lent, I would have some kind of meat. Not a lot, because it's not meant to be a blowout, but some. Now, why did I, as a good Presbyterian pastor, believe it was useful to fast in Lent? Simply as a version of unpacking Easter, as a preparation for the celebration of Easter itself. It was a way of doing what the Catholics call penance, like denying yourself something as a discipline. And I thought that was okay, because I was preparing myself for Easter. I often used to hold a service on Ash Wednesday in the evenings involving the imposition of ashes. Also a very Catholic tradition that has no place in Presbyterianism, but I did it anyway because people liked doing it, liked the idea of beginning a time of a special contemplation of what the Easter story is all about. It's about sacrifice. The Good Friday crucifixion is about sacrificing yourself for others. So start off preparing, and I just followed the traditional prohibitions of the Catholic Church through that period. That we would think of as a sacred Easter. Well, what about secular Easter? This is where it's interesting to me, because a great number of my friends and family have this idea that Lent is the time that you give up something. Like the original church tradition was that you were told what to give up, like meat and meat products and animal products. But it morphed into like give up something that's important to you, like smoking or sugar or alcohol or whatever. But with no religious purpose in mind. Just that Easter is coming. Lent is this period between Ash Wednesday and Easter Sunday, and you're supposed to give up something. You don't go to church. You're not really interested in what the church has to offer in terms of Lent or Easter or anything else, but you realize that you should give up something. And so you give up smoking for that period of time. You do something that you've always wanted to do. Maybe you even had it as a New Year's resolution, which lasted till about 2 a.m. on New Year's Day. But here's your opportunity. It's like, I want to give up smoking, or I want to lose weight, or I want to stop drinking, or stop drinking a lot. And so I'm going to give up those things for Lent as a test. But it's not leading to Easter Sunday. It's not leading to the joyous message of the resurrection or anything else that you're going to find out by going to church on Easter Sunday. It's just a routine discipline that has the same connection to Easter as Santa Claus does to Christmas. Like they're sort of connected, sort of not connected. Well, I mean, I don't mind if you do that. It doesn't bother me. Any more than if you play Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer as a prelude to Christmas. I don't care. Do what you want. But realize that giving something up for Lent has no spiritual purpose. It's, one might almost say, an egotistical or a narcissistic purpose. It's about self-improvement. Well, also, of course, penance is about self-improvement, but there's a larger picture there. Self-improvement because you want to be right with God. Whereas secular penance, like secular Lent, is about improving yourself because you want to improve yourself. All fine. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and do it. But it doesn't have much, if any, connection to Easter, says the pastor. So that, like, I, as a Reformed Presbyterian pastor, will follow like traditional Catholic doctrine, and secular Catholics don't follow that doctrine. Well, there's an irony for you. Anyway, I hope that the time now between Easter and Pentecost, very important time, still part of the Easter season and leading to a very important festival in a little while, the Pentecost, and then we'll move into a completely secular period. I hope this time is a time of contemplation for you, and I hope you will tell your friends about my videos, that you will like, you will subscribe, you'll encourage your friends to subscribe. And I have no idea what I'm going to be doing on Friday, but I'll see you then. Bye.